Yeah, today we are going to discuss about what is the impact of the stress and how it impacts on body and mind, and what are the physical effects of the stress. We already discussed stress is the word derived by Mr. Lindsay. And what are the effects of the stress? Whenever we are discussing about the stress, okay, when the people are try to achieve something to reach their goal, some stresses, it will give you some hardness to reach their goal. So here, whenever the person is into stress, the first thing is heartbeat will increase. Next, breathing intake, discomfort in the breathing intake, and heightened brain functions are all positive danger situation. It leads to chronic stress, like severe stress. Okay, so here, physical effects of the stress. Whenever the stress is affecting our body, mind, emotions, and the behavior, what are the mind? See, whenever the stress affecting our mind, we start thinking about worrying and we start about muddle thinking, impaired judgment. We can't take any judgment, and yeah, we can't give. And even in the judgment process, we'll go with the biased, or sometimes we can't take decision making. And nightmares, yes, nightmares and night terrors and hasty decisions will take. That's the reason people will say when you are in anger, when you are in stress, when you are in pain, don't take any decisions. And negativity will be more. Whatever things are going to happen, we'll think only the negative side, not at all in the positive direction. And next, decisions. Yeah, we can't take decision making. Decision by making capacity will reduce. And what about the body? How the body reacts? Okay, in body, the headaches and taut muscles, headaches will be more, frequent infections will come, and muscular twitches, skin irritations, skin scratching, itching, all these things will be there. And breathlessness, it affects on our breathlessness. And fatigue will be more. Yeah. Now we'll discuss about these are the bodily effects. Now we'll see what are the emotions, how the emotions will affect our stress. First thing, when the person is into stress, we have loss of confidence. Low self-esteem level will be there and more fussy and lot of irritability. Suppose if the person is in stress, if you go and ask something, they will get easily irritated. And anxiety, yeah, slowly it will start getting into anxiety. Then it may lead to the panic attack and other things. Alienation will be there and depression, one of the cause. Apathy. These are the stress effects on our emotions. Now we'll discuss about the behavior. Behavioral changes. Yeah, suppose if someone have a habit of smoking, that will increase more. Even the drinking, all other substance abuse, they'll take more. And restlessness will be more. They, for them, it's very hard to wind down. It's hard to take calm. It's hard to relax. And insomnia, sleeplessness, it's hard to sleep. And loss of sex drive. They don't have any interest towards the sex. They will show less interest towards the sex and drinking more. We already discussed smoking, drinking, substance abuse. If they are addicted to weed or not drugs, anything, they will try to more. One means to avoid the stressful events. Yeah, actually, the behavior part, daydreaming will be more. If the person is stressed, one means in daydreaming, they will be happy, more happy because of that happiness. They will try to go with the more daydreaming and loss of appetite. They don't feel hungry and all. So they'll go like that. So these are the effects of the stress on our body and mind, and even the behavior and the emotion. Now we'll discuss about one by one. Musculoskeletal system. When the body is stressed, muscles, what is the impact upon our muscles? Muscle tension is almost reflex reaction to stress. Okay, body way of guarding against injury and pain. And here the chronic stress causes the muscles in the body to be more or less constant state of alertness. Actually, when muscles are stiff, okay, and the tense for long periods of time, it triggers the body, even promotes stress related disorders like migraine, headache pain, yeah, migraine headache, or pain in shoulders, or neck and body aches. And even muscle tension also will improve more, means it will increase. Eventually, it may lead to muscle atrophy due to disuse of the body. So these are the muscle effects. Next, how this impact on respiratory system about the stress. Actually, whenever we are suffering with stress, the respiratory system supplies oxygen to cells and removes carbon dioxide waste from the body. But here, the respiratory system, whatever the air is coming from the nose, it goes through the larynx in the throat, down through the trachea, and into the lungs through the bronchi. Here, the bronchioles that then transfer oxygen to red blood cells for circulation. But whenever the person is into stress, like this strong emotion, it affects on our respiratory system, such as shortness of breath or rapid breathing, or the airway between the nose and the lungs constricts, and respiratory disease such as asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, and chronic bronchitis. See, when the person is constant stress, it affects on the respiratory system. It even affects on the what do you call, supplying to the oxygen to the cells. So because of this, they may get into the pulmonary disease or chronic bronchitis, asthma also. Now we'll discuss about the cardiovascular system. What is the impact of stress? So here, the heart and blood vessels comprise two elements of the cardiovascular system. Actually here, these two things works and nourish oxygen to the organs of the body. Actually, this activates and coordinates the body response towards the stress. Here, whenever the person is suffering with acute stress or short term such as meeting deadline, being stuck in traffic, or suddenly slamming on the brake, to avoid accidents. So here, there is a strong contraction of a heart muscle. So whenever this happened with the stress hormones of adrenaline or non-adrenaline or cortisol acting, okay, here the effect will be more on the cardiovascular system. So here the blood pumping will be increased, okay, and elevating blood pressure will be more, and this is also known as the flight or fight response. Once the acute stress episode passes, the body returns into normal state. Only whenever the person is, see, this is completely situation based. Suppose they heard some strong news. When the person is not prepared, okay, any kind of hard news for him, heartbroken news, then all these things will happen. Actually, suppose if the person is consistently going through this process, yeah, it may lead to heart hypertension, heart attack, and stroke also. See, in Corona, most of the people, they did not die towards the Corona effect. They know the news, someone died through Corona. Because of that, the heart attack has happened. Okay, so it affects on our heart dilate things. Okay, that's the reason we need to avoid the stress. Now we will see how our endocrine system affects. Whenever we are discussing about the endocrine system, we need to discuss about the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, okay, which controls Actually, whenever the person perceives the situation like challenging or threatening or uncontrollable, the brain initiates a cascade of events involving the HPA. HPA means hypothalamic axis. Here, whenever the person is frequently facing the stress response, the primary drive, okay, here, the steroid hormones called glucocorticoids, okay, which include the cortisol, often referred to the stress hormone. So here what happens, this hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, it will increase this stress hormones that is called cortisol. So it affects on the endocrine system when the person is challenging, threatening and all other situations. Now we will see how the stress and health. We come to know that hypothalamic pituitary adrenal gland effect will be there on stress. So here, because of this, it even affects our immune system activation. So actually here, whenever the immune system affect, actually here, whenever our immunity is reduced, we are prone to get more diseases. So our health conditions will be like chronic, okay, or else the people may get diabetes, obesity, depression, and immune disorder as HIV, and all these things, and metabolic disorders, it will like come. Okay, because of the stress hormone. What is the stress hormone? Cortisol. Which one is supplying? HPA. You can write HPA in your exams. Okay, now we will see the what is the stress effect on gastrointestinal system. Actually, whenever we are discussing about the gas related things, we will see about the gut health of the person. Okay, how the person's gut health. See, if the person is having constant communication with the brain, explaining the ability to feel butterflies in the stomach. Okay, the stress can affect the brain gut communication. So people will say, see, I'm feeling butterflies. These people always have the trigger pain or bloating or gut discomfort. So stress is one of the cause and root cause. Next, esophagus. When stressed, individuals may eat more or less than usual. We already discussed in the uh, previous session. When the person eating more may lead to the obesity, and it's called stress. Stress is the one of the reason. Even even my clients will say whenever people are eating more, yeah, they'll say because I'm eating stress. This is called my stress eating. They'll order a lot of junk food and they will eat. Overnight, they will eat more and more. Okay, stress is the one of the reason. They may order different foods or they may eat different foods or they may go with alcohol or tobacco. You know, whenever the person is into stress, they'll say, see, let me have a puff and come back. Okay, that means they'll have a smoke and come back. However the stress is going, they will do like that. So here, this esophagus, it may result to heartburn and acid reflux. See, whenever the person is having any kind of a discomfort in the system, it may lead to gastrointestinal system or esophagus. Now we are going to discuss about the stomach. What is the impact, stress impact on stomach? Actually, stress may cause pain or bloating or nausea and other discomforts in the stomach. Some people, they may puke like vomit. Okay, actually here, the appetite may increase, decrease also. See, suppose someone will say like they feel more hunger, people they will say, no, 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 I don't want to eat anything. I'm stressed. Bowel. Stress can also cause pain. Bloating or discomfort, we already know more easily in the bowels. So it can affect on the bowels. So they may go into diarrhea or constipation. We already discussed increased appetite or decreased appetite. So it affects on the bowels. And central nervous system. How the stress is affecting the central nervous system. Actually, whenever we are discussing about the central nervous system, the physical response towards the stress divided into two parts. One is the SNS. SNS means sympathetic nervous system. And PNS. PNS means parasympathetic nervous system. Actually, whenever the body is stressed, SNS contributes fight or flight response. Okay. So this will choose only this. Either it will flight or else it will escape. Means flight mode. Okay. Actually here, These people towards the stress, they may get into the fight or flight. The SNS signals, sympathetic nervous signals, adrenal glands to release hormones called adrenal and cortisol. We already discussed HPA is producing the cortisol hormone. Okay, these hormones together with the direct actions of autonomic nervous system. Okay, so here what happens when the autonomic nervous system is more, okay, fast heartbeat and faster respiration rate, increase blood vessels in the arms and legs to dilate digestive process, to change, and glucose levels will be in the bloodstream to increase the deal with emergency. So it affects our central nervous system. That's the reason we need to avoid stress. Now we will see how the direct impact of immune system. Okay, here, what is the immune system will help to avoid infections and the heals wounds. And yeah, sickness will be less if your immune system is working good. So here, the weaker immune system reduces the body response to foreign invaders. Means it will say, I found everything. Okay, common cold, flu, whatever the infection you have, please come and have because of the less immunity system. Okay, so stress is the one of the cause. Now we will see what is the stress impact on sexuality and reproductive system. When the stress is more, both the body and mind, it affects less sex desire when the person is under constant stress. While short-term stress may cause men to produce more of the male hormone testosterone, but this effect does not last. If the stress continues for a long time, men's testosterone levels can begin to drop. So when it's going down, the sperm, so it affects the reproductive system, and it may affect on the or it will, the interference will be there. So it may cause to the erectile dysfunction or impotency for a man. Okay, so here the chronic stress may lead increased risk of infection for male reproductive organs like the prostate and testes. So that's the reason if the man is having a lot of stress, constant stress or chronic stress, he needs to see if it is affecting, they need to go and see a doctor, a specialist. Now we will see how the woman will get impacted with the stress on her reproductive system and sexuality. Okay, here it affects on the menstrual cycle of a woman, and it can lead irregular or heavy periods or more painful periods. Even the chronic stress can cause the disturbance, the pregnancy also. It may lead to menopause, early menopause. Now we will see how the stress affecting the psychological effects of stress. Whenever the person is feeling strain and pressure, the constant way, okay, it's not at all, they feel like less desires and yeah, less challenging things, and the motivation will be less, anxiety will be more, okay, and it even affects the lifestyle of the person. And here, instead of enjoying, if the person is suffering with stress more, it may lead to chronic stress. So people can't control. Here it affects on the thought, judgment, and emotion. See, when the person is unable to think, can't judge. We already discussed about the negative emotions. So it affects on the emotions also. Now we'll see how the impact of emotion. So here, emotions. Actually, here people will tend to feel negative emotions more. Even in the thought process, the stress can sometimes be negative thoughts. Thoughts can invoke emotional response. Judgment. Emotions, thoughts, and judgment influence our actions and behavior. Okay, here it may lead to because of the stress, anxiety, restlessness, apprehension, lack of motivation, or there is no focus, or irritability, or anger, and depression also. It may lead to all these things, the psychological effects. That's the reason we need to calm and cool. We should avoid the stress. Stress during childhood and adolescence and their psychological sequel. See, we already discussed about the CNS system, central nervous system. Okay, here, whenever the child is affecting in the early stage, here long-lasting neurobiological effects will be there because of the chronic stressor. The child, yeah, it increases the child anxiety and mood disorders, or else it may lead to the aggressive discontrol problems. It may lead to the hypoimmune dysfunction or medical morbidity. And the structure, because of what's happening because of all these things due to stress and affecting on the CNS, central nervous system. Yeah, it may lead to early death also. So the psychological effects of maltreatment or abuse include the deregulation of affect, provocative behaviors, and avoidance of intimacy, and disturbance in attachment, and survivors of childhood sexual abuse have higher levels like both general distress and major psychological disturbance, including the personality disorders. Here, the childhood abuse also, actually it affects on the poor scholastic achievement. If the boy or girl is undergoing, the child is undergoing this abuse, the physical or verbal abuse, yeah, their performance will be reduced, and they may tend to like antisocial behavior, even because of the divorced parents or single parents, or disturbance in the home. If the both parents are fighting, it may lead to depression or anxiety. Actually, if the child is separated from the mother, most tendency will be more. The child may suffer with the suppression anxiety. Suppose if the child is raised by the caregivers, so this also will be there. And the child have always the trust issues. Yeah, even I have seen many clients, like whenever the person is suffering with anxiety and all, it may lead to them. And both the traumatic stress disorder, yes, PTSD, and depressive symptoms, all these things may affect. Now, we will look into effects of stress on mental health, how the mental health is getting affected towards the stress. We already discussed that it may lead to the depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorders, and thought disorders, personality disorders, because when the person is suffering with constant stress, okay, behavioral changes will be there, behavioral problems will come, and even the personality will changes because it leads to tension and anxiety, the constant. Okay, so that's the reason we need to avoid stress and depression. In everyday life, normal experience range of moods, both high and low. When negative feelings persist, people fall into depression. It may start to the ADL, means effects on the activities of daily life. Suppose if the person is suffering with constant stress, okay, it affects on the sleep problems, appetite changes, and the person will start self-harm and self-hate. They feel worthlessness. See, I'm fit for nothing. I hate myself. Why should I love? And guilt will be more. Because of the poor concentration, the person is unable to perform well even in the school and the colleges. And the restlessness will be more. Irritability will be more. Withdrawal and feelings of hopelessness and helplessness lead to the suicide. So here we need to be careful that when the person is suffering with the severe or chronic stress, we need to take care of the person. What is his the activities of daily life? Is that affecting anything? So is there any discomfort or challenges in the academic performance and all? We need to check with the person. Otherwise, the helplessness lead to suicide also. And what is the effect? Stress and bipolar disorder. Actually, when the person is suffering with bipolar disorder between manic and depressed mood state, bipolar disorder, sometimes they'll be in manic and sometimes they'll be in completely depressed mode, either this way or that way. It may cause like go the days and weeks and months also. So here, the mood cycling disrupts everyday functioning, like affecting energy, activity levels, judgment, even behavior. Not only that, it affects them as well of the whole scenario. If the person is working in organization, it even that it affects on the family side also. Now we will see what is the effect on stress and anxiety disorders. Anxiety or dread feelings, it persists the cause the people of generalized anxiety disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder or panic disorder. So if the person is having constant stress, yes, but means they can't take decisions, the poor thing, all these things, poor concentration, poor judgment, restlessness, helplessness, worthlessness, and they can't, they will see always, I'm in a position, I can't take care of my life, everything they have own doubts. So all these things leads to the anxiety and stress disorder or panic disorder also. Now we will see stress and cognitive function, how it's affecting our neurons, the brain cells. Okay, stress hormones may decrease the functioning of neurons, the brain cells. So here, whenever this happening, it affects on our hippocampus region of brain. Means it's in the frontal lobes, the part of the brain that is necessary for paying attention. So here, whenever this affecting our frontal lobe, here, what happens? Paying attention is going to be a big problem. And flirting of irrelevant information. Actually, here to solve the problems, we need this. So, but we can't solve the problems and difficulty in concentrating. And yeah, because of the stress, they may feel confusion and yeah, trouble in learning a new information and problems with decision making. All those things will happen. Now, we'll discuss about the stress and personality changes. When the term personality is used to describe a consistent individual pattern of thoughts and emotions. See, when the person is suffering with stress, okay, here it affects on their situations. Okay, even if it affects on the health and illness. So they can't focus on anything. So psychosocial interventions, like we need to go with the person to send the therapy, or once we identify the symptoms, okay, we need to take care of the persons. What are the symptoms? First thing, it affects on the behavioral response. So here, when the person is into constant stress, okay, here the social and actually when the person is in stress, chronic stress, it affects on his nurturance. It affects on his motivation. Actually, here the impairment response will be there. Okay, here we need to see what is the stress. Is that acute or chronic? Acute means, yeah, some certain time. Chronic means we need to take care. Okay, we need to. Actually, here when the person is suffering with chronic, it increases the substance use like smoke, and it may lead to accidents, sleep problems, eating disorder, all these things will be there. So we need to see. See, we need to check even, actually here, one is the behavioral response to stress, and now change in social behavior, how they will, because of this HPA. HPA means hypothalamic pituitary gland affect hormonal axis directly related to the changes in stress-social behavior. So here what it happens, actually it affects on their social lives. So here the constant level of persistent stress, it affects their social interactions and tend to be more irritable and hostile. If the person is having this kind of behavioral changes, behavior modification in their day-to-day life, we need to observe the person and need to go for the therapies. And sexual behavior, behavioral changes. When the person is into behavioral changes from developmental stress impairs natural responses like sex signals. Okay, it reduces sexual activity. Okay, impact, actually the stress negatively impacts sex hormones, which results in imbalance and reduction in aggression related to hormone and sexual function. Prolonged stress reduces parental behavior towards offspring, and the prolonged stress even alters the parental behavior towards offspring and promotes parental neglect. Stress impact hormone, actually, which is associated with the nurturing assurance by parents of spring. So here it even affects the relationship also. And next one, transgenerational response. What is this transgenerational response? Actually, this is the behavior response to stress, okay, which is coming from the parents to offspring. When offspring observes, actually the here of expression is behavior such as fear in response stimulus. Okay, here what are the things we'll see? What are the behavioral effects of stress? First thing, what will happen? Low productivity will be there. And decrease work performance. So production rate will reduce and the work performance will be very less, and tendency to remain absent from work will be more, and the interpersonal complex will be more, and tend to be remain isolated. They don't want to join in the social interactions of groups and other things. So they will isolate themselves. And sudden change in the habits like eating and clothing. They may eat or they may buy many things, others they may use the repeatedly same clothes. And here, when the person is depressed, the eye contact will be poor. And smoking, alcoholism, and drug use will be more. We already discussed these things. Now, common effects of stress. So here, common effects means we already discussed psychological, physical, and behavioral problems. When the person is getting into stress, all these things. So, irrespective of all these things, we need to manage stress effectively. This is all about your stress. Now we will discuss about the what is the prime suspect of the stress. Stress hormone is the prime suspect. What is this stress hormone? Cortisol. So whenever this cortisol increases, stress will be increased. Now we will see link between stress and illness. See, we already discussed there is a lot of disorders will come when the stress is increased. So now we'll focus on that. During the heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, muscle tension, digestion, metabolism, and the immune system. Okay, all these things will happen. Once the stress is removed from the body, then the person will be cool, relaxed. All these effects won't be there. So here we need to see. Now, what is the acute stress versus chronic stress? See, we are saying stress, stress, stress. What is acute stress? Acute stress is a short-term stress. See, suppose if the person is got stuck in the traffic jam, okay, there is a acute. One means this period will be there only for short term. Suppose he had a fight with the wife, okay, or else he criticized his boss, or else boss criticized him. So this is the short term stress. They don't have the issue for the long term. Okay, here the chronic stress gradually. Suppose if the human body can adopt this, okay, can push us into bulldozer. Actually, the chronic stress is like a bulldozer effect. So if the person is working under chronic stress, for him, it decreases the resting heart rate and blood pressure, even the breathing levels, and the muscle tone, muscle tension will be increased. So all these things leads to the high blood pressure, heart disease, chronic pain, and depression. These are all comes under chronic stress. So here, when the person is suffering with chronic stress, we need to address the issue, and he may need to take the psychiatrist help for medicine, and he needs to take the help from the clinical psychologist. So here, you may get a questions like what is the respiratory system, how does the impact, and how does it impacts on the health, and what are the stresses. All these questions may ask you in the exam, and elucidate stress, and what are the stress and mental health. So these questions may raise you. Explain about depression and emotional stress. What is the impact of hippocampus, or else what is HPA? These questions. Now we will discuss about coping with stress. Now we have seen the disorders and effects of the stress, how it happens. Now we will see the coping strategies. Appraisal of coping strategies, how the emotion will affect on the strategies, how the problem and solution focused. See, whenever the person is getting into the stress, we need to improve the person's coping skills. Okay, during the corona time, like coronavirus, COVID-19, the outbreak has led human beings stress more. They become bewildered and confused and threatened all over the world. Actually, coronavirus threatened all over the world, but that impact will be there with everyone. So here we need to see what are the challenges, what are the experiences people are getting into that, and what happened to the psychological growth, and how it's impacted the physical growth, and what is threatening. Actually, whenever we are discussing about the stress, we'll discuss about the coping. Okay, what is the adaptive or constructive coping strategies to reduce the stress? See, people will different coping skills. Now we'll see the nurture coping. Coping occurs in the context of life changes that are perceived to be stressful. Coping involves adjusting or tolerating negative events or realities of life while attempting to the main emotional equilibrium and positive self-image. Actually, coping with stress is an adaptive response. Why? See, we have to improve our coping. For small reasons, if you are feeling high stress, what will happen? It's like a daily hassle for the person. For critical life events, yes, we need to. Like, what are the critical events? Lost the loved one, taking divorce, or chronic strain at work stress, or bad boss. These are all the chronic things. The response was termed coping with stress includes the psychological process and activities like attention process, okay, threatening stimulus, all these things. It affects on one's well-being. Okay, so here we need to take care the person is should not affect the cognitive abilities of the person, and he needs to uh, mobilize with a greater effort. But yes, the person needs to lead the routine normal life. Okay, all these things we need to take care. Now definition. Actually, Mr. Folkman and Lazarus, 1984, they said constantly changing cognitive and behavioral effort to manage specific external and internal demands that are appraised as taxing. Actually, here the coping is an activity to seek and apply solutions to stressful situations. Here, whenever we are discussing about the coping, we mediate between antecedents, stressful events, and distressing consequences. We need to plan our coping skills to take care of the psychological patterns, what individually, like the way the people will manage their thoughts and even their internal demands. And we need to take care. We need to seek and apply the solution to a stressful situation. See here how to apply the coping styles. First one, task oriented, emotional oriented, and avoidance oriented. Task oriented means the person needs to aim and solve the problems. Whatever the person we have, he needs to sit and he needs to plan, then he needs to solve the issues. Now, what is emotion oriented? Actually, here the emotion oriented coping involves the emotional reactions of the person. See, we already discussed the emotions. What are the emotions people will have? Hate, anger, jealous, loved one, loss of love, and sympathy, guilt. All these things comes under emotions. So here we need to take care of the emotional reactions of the person towards the stress. Next one, avoidance oriented coping involve. See here, we need to avoid the stressful situation which distracts or which diverts the emotional well-being. Now, what are the coping mechanisms we need to apply when the person is into stress? See, we already discussed about the difficult events like divorce, miscarriage, or loss of law, job. It may lead to the grief or distress. So whenever these things happen, we need to approach, we need to getting married, the positive approach of divorce. Okay, having a child for miscarriage, or homeless, buying a home. Okay, all these things, whatever the stress, we need to plan to improve the coping mechanism. How to see coping mechanism in the sense this is only the solution oriented, not the problem oriented. So based on the problem, we need to plan for the solution. Okay, suppose if the person is suffering with anger or loneliness or anxiety, we need to improve the coping skills. See, if the person is suffering with coping mechanism like he's suffering with depression. So here what we have to do, what is the coping strategy? We need to see a professional or else we need to see a psychiatrist. We need to make sure that he should come out of the person, out of the depression to help the person. And defense mechanism. Mostly actually have what happens in an unconscious level, people generally unaware that they are using them. Defense mechanisms can change a person's internal psychological state. Now we'll see what are the different coping styles. The first one is support. Actually, from adaptive techniques, we need to seek support to manage our distress and problem solving. We need to identify the problem. We already discussed. We need to be the solution oriented, not problem oriented. Actually, the solution oriented or problem oriented, it will help you to have this unhealthy self-soothing. What is unhealthy self-soothing? Like suppose if the person is overeating or binge drinking or binge eating or excessive use of internet or video games, he needs to have his own. Why? Because he is into literally stress, heavy stress or chronic stress. He will choose. He don't get anything. Like he won't get any stress while playing some online games and all other things or video games. Self-harm. Few people, when the person is into stress, they will try to harm themselves. This is one of the coping mechanism, but it leads to the extreme trauma of the person. Now we will see ways of coping. Okay, first one, approaches avoidance coping model. Here, what we can discuss, we need to see how the person is approaching as an individual, how the situation is demanding to complete the task or to prefer the response. So here we need to see approach avoidance. Okay. Actually, this is an unconscious valuing and emotional activity to clearly non-consciously designed. There can be an unconscious valuing of the threatening material as well as conscious attempt to keep the material out of awareness. Next one is approach avoidance formulation. Here the approach avoidance in distinction. Here the person coping strategies with stress in approach, well, they will avoid. Okay, here the repression involves an avoidance of anxiety, arousing stimuli and their consequences. And approach strategies will be different. Now, consistency of coping. Actually, in this approach, you will see retreat and encounter. The several, whatever the cycle attention, we will go with the retreat and encounter model. So here, what is the retreat? Avoidance of thinking about the trauma. So suppose loss of loved one. They don't think about the loved one. They'll start focusing on themselves or they'll focus on some new thing. So here in approach, what is the encounter? Whenever the person is facing the consequences, okay, here the emotional stressor will be different. So they deal differently. Next, consistency of coping styles. Here there are two types of things like approach avoidance formulation. So here, whatever they do like in approach wise, actually they will go with the universal processing of coping. Actually, in this, they will try to understand the person approach and or they avoid the response. Suppose the certain aspects of threatening material can be avoided while other aspects are approached. So this is the strategy they will apply here. Now we will see approach avoidance coping effectiveness. Here, these are three important factors in evaluating coping effectiveness. The first point time is effectiveness evaluated. What is the effectiveness? Okay, how it's affecting the person's stressful situation and how to fit into that coping style. So here we will see the stressful situation and we may reject or we may avoid the situation or the strategies also, but we will completely focus on the problem side. Here, denial may helpful only in limited frame, not always. Okay. So people will say, oh, I will deny. No, it always won't help you. Sometimes we need to take care of our emotional resources also in this process. Actually, here, uh, there is no advantage of this approach because whereas avoidance serves to reduce anxiety and depression. So here the person is tend to get less anxiety and less stress. But suppose it even affects the person's adjustment level or desires to fit with the situational constraints, then that effect will be more. So here we need to see what is the structure the person is following. Okay. See, suppose ways of coping stress. First one is biofeedback, using thought process to control a psychological response. This is one of the best strategy. People will go with the biofeedback effect to deal with the stress. Another one, meditation or relaxation. Actually, when the person is in deeply relaxed state, it reduces the psychological and physiological tension. Physical exercise, the person can go for gym or dance or yoga or walking or running. It reduces the physical strain. Social support, it helps the assistance from other people. And what are the coping strategies? Appraisal focused coping, okay, emotional focused coping, and problem focused coping. Appraisal, actually, whenever we are discussing about the appraisal coping, actually here they will denial of problem or distracting oneself from the stressor. Okay, people may alter thinking by changing their goals and values also in this appraisal focused. Actually, here they challenge their own assumptions. In emotional focused coping strategies, okay, in emotional focused coping strategies, they will distress minimizing and they will reduce the preventing the emotional components. Here, they don't invest their emotions over there. So whatever the challenges they are facing, they will they will reduce the emotions. Okay, one is this is uncontrollable situation, I can't deal with this. Like disability or loss of loved one, terminal illness, all these things. Emotion focused coping strategies useful reducing stress when used for short period of time, not for the long term. Okay. Next, the emotion focused coping techniques, journaling, reframing. Reframing in the sense, suppose if you are thinking in a positive direction, you need to change it, alternate. Cognitive distortions and mediation. In journaling, we can put all our, like, in reframing, positive thinking, forget powerlessness, dejection, despair, failure, focus on trends, looking for opportunities, making change. In cognitive distortions, actually here, whenever we are discussing about the cognitive distortion, the cause of individual to perceive reality accurately to reduce the negative impact of stressful situation. Meditation, we can go with the breathing process and meditation. It's a very good positive, healthy stress buster and problem focused coping strategies. Actually, Folkman and Lazarus, they identified three problem focused strategies. The first one is we need to analyze the situation. We need to pay in detail. The second strategy is work harder to find alternative solution. Third one is apply what you have already learned to your daily life. Okay. The next one is talk to a person that has direct impact on the situation. Actually, it's completely a problem focused. Affiliation. In affiliation, people brief, befriending or finding social support. They involve many people here. And humor. Sigmund Freud, well-known psychoanalyst, advocated the humor is an excellent defensive strategy. See, up to certain extent, if you're taking for small things the humor, it won't work out. So actually, whenever the situation is there, yeah, you can watch the comic things and all, or creative humor or sense of relief from the stress. And sublimation. It allows channeling our troublesome emotions into a socially acceptable outlet. Next one, displacement. Positive reprisal. It directs through thoughts to good things and leading to personal growth. Next, displacement. Individual redirects emotional feelings from one situation to another stressful. Repression. Repression is an attempt to suppress all thoughts and feeling a stressor. And reaction formation. Actually, this is an acceptable thoughts by replacing them with the exact opposite situation. Acting out. This is a counter-reproductive action in a stressful situation. And solution-focused strategies. Yeah, first one is time management. We need to, whenever we are busy, we need to follow our time in a scheduled manner. And conflict resolution, we need to go with the skills. And yeah, even we can do self-soothing, distraction, opposite action, crisis planning, and mindfulness. Mindfulness in the sense being in the moment, and emotional awareness. Whatever the emotions we have, we need to understand. Okay, so all these things. Before this, we need to have a Indian perspective on coping, how to deal, learn to say no, and measuring coping. We need to measure what are the coping strategies we are, like dispositional coping, fixed or flexible. Few people, they will go with the fixed lifestyle. See, I don't care what other people think. I am like this, I will be like this. Few people are not like the situational. In this situation, I will adjust not long term, like this will say. See, overview of measures. See, these are the scales like coping inventory, miles coping inventory, milital state of coping mechanism, base of coping questionnaire, cope inventory. These are all questionnaires and all we can go through and we can see the scales. Many scales are available. So to see the cope inventory, we need to see active coping and planning. Yeah, we'll discuss tomorrow. Thank you. Have a nice day.